I think about how much effort goes into am I going to have a gin and tonic tonight or am I not going to have anything at all? And then if I do have a drink, I should probably take some Advil before I go to bed. And the whole cycle that happens in the morning when you feel kind of hungover and I wake up and I'm like, why did I do that? Now I'm not as clear and I don't feel like exercising. And I probably shouldn't have had that wine. And I realize that there's a lot of active energy that I have around alcohol. And I wanted to talk to you because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't have a problem. But what I do have a problem with is the amount of conflict that I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I literally argue for it and against it every single time I use it, where I'm like, well, it's just a gin and tonic, for God's sakes. I mean, it's just like, who cares? And then I'm like, well, the poison. And, you said you weren't going to drink tonight, so you're a liar. And that means you have a problem. And then I'm like, well, no, I don't, because I'm just having a gin and tonic, for God's sakes. And then I fill it up with Topo Chico after that. Not the alcoholic Topo Chico, but just the regular one. So what's wrong with that? Well, you said you weren't going to drink, and then that's a this, and then you're going to sleep like shit because you're in menopause. And it's like this beat down. So
yeah,
help me. Help me.
Well,
help all of us. How did you start doing this? Like, what do you drink? I have so many questions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so, I will say that I started drinking in college. I was 17.
Oh,
and
that's late. I'm a way better drinker than you are. I started at 14, man.
I was very quickly like, oh, this is the solution to all my problems. Like, we don't have to feel awkward. We don't have to feel anxious. I don't have to listen to any of my internal critic or any of my, hangups. This is amazing. Where has this been? Right. And so I think that was my experience, what you're describing, the kind of 20 something that I would work very hard during the week. By the way, also during the week, a constant kind of P.S. Don't ever make any mistakes. Don't do anything wrong. You must do everything perfectly. And then the weekend for me was my outlet to be like, okay, finally, not only do I get to stop feeling anxious and awkward and have these hangups, but also I can be a little wild and mess up. And this is a way to feel sexy and confident and have fun. And so, that was something that my brain was learning. And again, I think it's really important to reiterate that we are learning something when we drink. The brain is always learning. So we're not just learning to acquire the taste. We're learning about, hey, this is what we do at sporting, when we watch the game or at sporting events or at celebrations or on vacation. So we're learning both when we do it, and we're also learning, this is how I relax. Right? This is how I connect. This is how I open up. And so all of that is unconsciously happening below the surface. And I think we get to this point where we start to want to examine our drinking, and maybe I want to drink less, or maybe I'm unsure about this. And we are trying to do it from this place of, okay, well, I know it's not good for me, right? I know I shouldn't do this, or I should be more responsible, as opposed to, hey, well, what has my brain learned? Right? Can I start to understand that? Can I start to teach my brain something different about what alcohol is a symbol for? I mean, it becomes a symbol for so many things. And I think we just look at it from the superficial of oh, I just like the taste, right? Or I was like, oh, I'm just into craft cocktails. That's just my thing.
I like the ceremony and the smoke and the sprig of rosemary that comes out of that thimble that they serve it in for $20, right?
Well, but right, there is so much. I mean, you think about it, you go to a fancy restaurant and you're getting the wine pairing and the sommelier is coming over, and you're getting all this information about, where it was grown and the type of grape. And yeah, I mean, we are building up all of this kind of excitement and drama around it. And by the way, I'm not saying any of that is bad, but I think we just have to understand that there's a reason that we attach all this kind of symbolism and desire and what it starts to represent. So that's all going on, and then we have the other side of, okay, well, if I had too much to drink, I was obviously stupid, and I should know better. And why am I still making these same mistakes? I should have grown out of this by now. So there's this idea that that all of our desire and urges should just be conquered by our intellect. And that doesn't make any sense.
I just love everything that you're saying because I'm starting to realize that one of the reasons why I've never been drawn toward just being a person that doesn't have alcohol in their life, period, is that it also felt, for me at least, I know for some people it's incredibly important and empowering, and it is the choice that is the right choice and the choice you need to make. But for me, there was something about it that felt like a part of the thing I'm already doing, which is making myself wrong about the urges. And I have always said to myself that I just wish I could be the kind of person that had no drama around it, that if I wanted a glass of wine, I had a glass of wine in the moment. And if I didn't feel the need to finish the whole bottle of wine, that I wouldn't have this whole shame cycle and conflict of whether or not I'm going to drink or not drink. And when you said the thing about how, like, it's part of how we watch sports, it made me realize there are so many stories that your brain has learned about when and where and why you drink alcohol. And I think the two biggest stories for me are, number one, that alcohol for me is about belonging. Not belonging to the alcohol, but my brain has hardwired the moment that I first had a drink when I was 14 years old, and I was dating somebody who was 2 grades ahead of me. And at that point in time, I think it was still grandfathered in that if you were 18, you could buy alcohol in Michigan. And so my boyfriend could buy alcohol, his friends could buy alcohol because he was 17. And we would go out to Lake Michigan. And I remember when we were first dating, we pull into the state park and there were all the seniors out there. And my boyfriend was a junior and I was a freshman. And I was so scared because I was the only freshman or sophomore that was out at that beach. The sun was setting. We get out of the car. He grabs my hand. We walk towards all his friends. And one of the gals turns to me and says, "Hey, Mel, would you like a rum and Coke?" And when she handed me that rum and Coke in a red Solo cup, I immediately exhaled and was like, okay, I'm part of the group. And so the trigger for me is anytime the waiter comes around or I'm going over to a friend's house. This just happened last night. I was not planning on having anything to drink last night. And then I went over to my friend's house. She had 2 glasses out and a bottle of Sancerre, and she poured 2 glasses and said, "Let's go walk around the garden." And I'm like, okay, okay, I'm going to join in with you. And it feels good to join in. And the Sancerre tasted great. And I had a glass of wine and that was that. And then I came home. But of course, as I'm driving home, Rachel, I'm like, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Right, because you're making it mean that you did something wrong.
Yes.
As opposed to like, can we just love your brain for a second? That it's like, hey, I want to belong. How normal of me, how human of me that I want to feel connected, right? And at some point, you're 14 and the brain's like, oh, this is how we belong. Like, you have the red Solo cup, I have the red Solo cup, look. Belonging. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, what was your brain learning? Right now, you may not have made consciously that connection in that moment, but at some point, your brain did make that connection. It did make that association. And so then it's like, wait, if this is a symbol of belonging and I want to belong, because who doesn't? Then what's going to happen all of a sudden? It's like, okay, so I go see my friend and she pours 2 drinks and I'm like, no, thank you. Are we disconnected now? Do I not belong?
And I know intellectually, Rachel, that she wouldn't give a shit. She'd just take my glass that she poured in hers and then give me a seltzer. Like she can roll with it. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But this goes deeper than what you know intellectually. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you, because the other piece of this for me is something that I only have recently discovered. And that is that having lived with undiagnosed ADHD for 47 years of my life, and understanding now the role of dopamine and the fact that when you have undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, there is a huge deficiency in it, and your ability, to basically switch between neural networks, that you unconsciously seek those dopamine dumps. One of them being the of having that first sip, right? And so I also see the correlation of the other moment that I really love to have a drink, which is after a really awesome, busy day at work. It's a celebration. And it is a lever because I work so hard that's like, oh, this is signaling to my brain that I can literally turn off the working brain, and I can just shift down into, oh, it's time to relax and not think about work mode.
Well, it becomes a boundary, right? And so I talk about
A
a
boundary?
lot of
Oh, whoa, wait a minute. So wait. So a drink becomes a boundary? That is genius.
I'm
Did you
off the
make that up?
clock. I'm off the clock, right? This is my boundary. I have poured the drink. I am off the clock.
Oh my God, you're right.
And so then it's like, okay, so now I'm going to try to say no. I didn't understand that it was a boundary. So now my brain's like, okay, so we're still on the clock and I have to keep thinking, but I've been thinking all day long and I don't want to think about work anymore. This is my permission not to think.
I freaking love you. I feel like you are literally showing me a whole new world, because I have made it so much about the alcohol that I'm conflicted on the surface. And what you're trying to get us to see is, hold on a sec. Drop deeper into what the where and when means and why you have the urge. Like it's almost as if you're saying, let's just remove alcohol from the conversation for a minute, and let's talk about this urge that you have and why there's such a conflict. Holy shit. We're just going to jump in with a confessional. Is that okay? I have been thinking a lot about my relationship. It sounds weird to even say my relationship with alcohol. I've been thinking a lot about drinking. Should I drink? Should I not drink? Is it bad if I'm drinking? And I feel like I have a split personality.